Welcome, friends, to Portal to the Past, time travel with picture book tales from the Powell River Public Library and real historical content from the Powell River Historical Museum and Archives. This month's story is Marja's Skis, and after the story, we'll be looking at old-time logging. Are you ready?
Today's story will be read to you by Sonia Zagwyn from the Powell River Public Library. After the story, Joëlle Sévigny from the Powell River Historical Museum and Archives will discuss local logging history.
Marja's Skis, written by Jean E. Pendziwol, with pictures by Jirina Marton. Published by Groundwood Books, House of Anansi Press. Eva was bigger than Marja. She was stronger too. She could go to school and milk the cow and take Father's team for water. Marja wanted to take Father's team for water too, but Mother always said, "No, Marja, you are not strong enough. The horses are too big." Father's horses were very big. They were the most beautiful horses working in the forest outside Makaman. Every day, Father would drive them along the ice roads to where stacks of wood lay piled from a summer of harvesting and a fall of skidding. After his sleigh had been loaded with wood, Father would ride high atop the big round logs, driving his teams to the shores of the Kaministiquia River. There he would pile his logs with a jumble of others, some from the logging camps and some from the neighbors. Father's logs were all marked on the end. That way the mill would know whose they were when they arrived in the spring. Father and his team would come home tired after a long, hard day. Eva would help unhitch the horses and take them to water. But Marja was not strong enough. Instead, she would go into the barn and collect pieces of binder twine. Tying a knot in one end, she would untwist the cord until it looked just like her hair when Mother took out her braids the morning after a sauna. Then she would tie the tassels onto the harness of Father's team. Sometimes Marja would sit beside Mother and watch her milk the cow. She loved being in the barn, smelling the sweetness of the hay mingled with the heat of the animals. Mother would make her drink milk warm from the cow. She didn't like milk warm from the cow, but Mother said it would help her to grow strong. She drank and waited. The winter Marja turned 7, Father said it was time for her to go to school. Mother said she was still too small. She said Marja couldn't walk all the way past Mackey's store, over Brule Creek, through Kivapelto's field to Makaman Road where the school was. When Marja was bigger and stronger, she could go to school. But Father said it was time Marja learned how to speak English and figure sums and write her letters. He winked at her and tapped her gently on the chest. "When you are strong inside, you can do anything," he said. To be continued. We have only read a portion of this book for this portal to respect copyright. To finish the story, visit your local library to reserve and read a copy of the book, or follow the link in the video description to find out how you can invite Sonia and Joëlle into your classroom to deliver an interactive portal to the past.
While the story of Marja's Skis was set out in Canada's east in the Great Lakes region, it has similarities with where we live here on the Sunshine Coast. One of our main natural resources is also timber. The forests in the Catet region have various species like cedar, fir, hemlock, maple, and spruce. A variety of them are logged, but certain species are highly sought after, like western red cedar. You can identify western red cedar by its reddish-brown to gray-colored bark that is striated into long, narrow strips. Cedar leaves are also green and shaped in wide and flat sprays. Douglas fir is another species that is sought after. You can identify it by looking for its thick, deeply furrowed bark. Douglas fir needles are also single on a twig, as well as long and flat. Long before settlers arrived, First Nations logged the area very selectively, taking only what they needed in a sustainable fashion. For example, cedar strips were harvested for weaving various objects like baskets and hats. Plowmen individuals also selected trees to carve canoes. The trees found in Catet's forests is one of the reasons why settlers came to Powell River. Timber is used for the construction of homes, paper, and many other material goods. Because of the high demand of this natural resource, timber is highly valued and sought after. On the Upper Sunshine Coast, logging was well underway in the 1890s. Various logging companies began logging the trees closest to the ocean first, and then moving inland. In this photo, taken in 1911, you can see the camp of the Michigan and Puget Sound Logging Company. This area was called Luttsville and was situated on the site of the old townsite golf course. Workers who cut trees are called fallers. In this photo, two fallers at Lang Bay just made an undercut on a big fir tree. They used a double-ended handsaw and axes. This is a method used by fallers to control where the tree will fall. In the late 1950s, chainsaws, which are motorized, replaced handsaws. They made cuts quicker and took less effort. Over time, different modes of transportation were used in forestry operations. At first, after trees were felled, teams of horses or oxen would pull logs out of the forest. In this historical photograph, a log is being pulled by a team of horses at Stillwater in 1918. The Stillwater area was logged very early on. A man named Farquhar McRae was one of the first settlers to log there. Skid roads made up of greased logs was another way to move timber out of the forest. Skidding is another term that means to haul or pull. At the turn of the century, horses and oxen started being replaced by steam engines. A type of steam engine commonly used in forestry operations was called a steam donkey. They were powered by boiling water in big boilers that created steam in order to power winches that in turn would pull logs to a landing. In order for the steam donkey to pull the logs, cables were tied around the trees. The men who did this job are called choker setters. This method is still utilized today. However, steam donkeys have been replaced by gasoline-powered machines. Skid roads were eventually replaced by steam locomotives and railways. The Powell River region hosted 18 railways from the 1890s to the 1950s. The Eagle River and Northern Railway was the longest-lived railroad and went all the way up to Lewis Lake. Workers lived in logging camps, which were located at various locations in the forests and in the backcountry. This photo, dated from 1919, shows the Myrtle Point logging camp. In the 1950s, as logging moved further and further back into the mountains, logging roads and logging trucks replaced railways for moving logs out of the forest. In this region, skiing was not utilized as a mode of transportation in forestry operations like in the story Marja Skis. People did ski, but for fun. Here you can see a skier on the old golf course in Townsite. And that's the end of the story for today, but stay tuned for more Portal to the Past stories coming in the spring.